You see another jobs concern up in Milan, where the Milan Arsenal, there's a proposal there to move the work from there to somewhere else and to bring in a depleted uranium disposal system there. What are your concerns there? Is there something you would want to do as a representative to address that situation?
Well, it's kind of too late to make a decision as far as that goes. It's already been, it's a done deal as far as I'm concerned. Now, had the jobs not moved out of the area as far as the manufacturing base due to NAFTA, this wouldn't really be a concern. It would be 600 jobs. It wouldn't be as hurtful. I understand the impact to that area, and as far as the nuclear waste goes, I don't know that I would want that in our backyard, and I think that's probably the wrong approach, that we don't need a nuclear, sure, it may be jobs, but I think that the safety factor is what we need to address. There's other locations in Nevada and also Yucca Mountain that can be used or better utilized versus here. If it's just to bring jobs, I think that the safety concerns outweigh the job concerns. Now, would I stand in its way if the local community wanted that? Probably not, but I would work with them to try to do what's best for the community. And as far as working about getting jobs in the area, I think if we focused on the mega site and getting out of the way of the federal government, or getting out of the way of small businesses so that they can invest in the communities, I think that would help create jobs and not make the Milan Arsenal such a focus.
Talk a little bit about health care, switching gears a little bit, specifically the legislation passed by Congress that drew a lot of attention. A lot of people in these parts were opposed to it. There's been a lot of talk of what a new Congress might do to reverse that plan, to change that plan. What would you support doing?
Well, I'm in full support of repealing Obamacare. I do feel that we do need to address health care in America. But quite frankly, I think that they took the wrong approach. I feel that they shoved this legislation down our throats. Nancy Pelosi said it best, where she said, we will see what's in the plan when we pass the plan or pass the bill. And that wasn't the transparency that they talked about. I was actually a member of the Tea Party groups that went down to Washington to protest the Obamacare passage. I feel that there are better ways to address health care in America. I think that we do have to address health care and the cost. It truly has to be addressed. But I don't think the government-run health care is the solution. And I would address health care in a number of fashions. And I think if your next question is, well, what would I do? Well, I think there's quite a bit that we can do. First of all, we need to get healthcare providers to compete on price. To do that, we have to change the way that healthcare is delivered in America. I think that one approach that we can take would be to change the insurance, the way that we receive insurance, and make it more like auto insurance, where we have health insurance that covers catastrophic care, which is the most expensive and high cost of health care. And then enact the health care savings plan, which allows Americans to use pre-tax dollars and save that into an account that they can use for their doctor's visits. That helps in two ways. One, it gets the consumer to look at the cost of health care, and then it also makes the doctors and the providers compete on price. A good example would be LASIK surgery. LASIK surgery has been omitted from all health plans from the get-go. Maybe 10 years ago, LASIK surgery cost approximately $10,000 per eye. It's now down to $500 per eye. Quality hasn't gone down, the availability hasn't gone down, but the price has, because those people who provided that coverage had to compete on cost or on price. And that's what we need to do in healthcare. Another factor we need to address is the liability of doctors. Tort reform is thrown around a lot. I think that tort reform, it's a key word that most people key on, but I think what we need to do is address real liability protection for doctors. I don't think tort reform is the way to go. We need to look at a way that we can establish a liability limit and not take away the patient's right to sue a doctor that was clearly in malpractice. But we need a way to make doctors not practice defensive medicine, which is another thing that has driven up our costs. I personally feel that we have the best quality care in America, healthcare-wise. It's the cost that we need to address. And in order to do that, I think that we have free market solutions out there, and that's the way that we should approach it, instead of trying to create this monstrosity, this huge government agency with lots of new taxes, which are really going to put us in worse shape financially as a country. But that's my approach.
You mentioned the Tea Party movement. You've received some support there. Talk about the tenets of that group and how that plays into your campaign, your beliefs.
Great. Well, I think the Tea Party is like a bunch of independent groups, and it's interesting how it's evolved. There's been some notoriety and actually some negative things said about the Tea Parties, but overall I think that they represent the frustration of Americans like myself that are frustrated with what's going on in Congress today. But getting them all to agree on one specific or a platform is difficult. I think that I've come up with 4 principles that I think that they can all agree on: adherence to the Constitution, a strong national defense, fiscally responsible, and securing our borders. I think that all Tea Party groups can agree on those 4 tenets. But what they want is they want real change. They want to change government and make it smaller, adhere to the Constitution and the enumerated powers that are in the Constitution. And that's basically what they stand for. If that's considered radical, then I'm a radical.
You mentioned securing our borders. Certainly we've heard a lot about illegal immigration, particularly against the backdrop of what's been going on in Arizona.
Sure.
What changes would you support there?
Well, I think there's a lot of changes that need to be made. One, I think enforcing the laws that we have on the books is probably a good start. But as I've outlaid on my website and I've spoken about several times, is that there are 3 things that we can do initially, and that first is secure our borders. We have to stop the leak that's coming into our country. And that means build a fence, monitor that fence. We have technology. We can build and secure our borders easily. Maybe easily is not the right word, but we can do it. It is something that we can do. It's money well spent. Second, we need to either deport or register the illegal aliens, estimated anywhere from 11 to 22 million illegal immigrants that we have in our borders today. Either deport them or register them as guest workers. And then third, we need to crack down on anyone who hires an illegal immigrant. That'll ensure that anyone who's in our country is here legally and then pays for the use of our schools, our hospitals, and our other services. That is one of the, and again, the fair tax, is another thing that would capture a lot of revenue. The 11 to 22 illegal immigrants aren't paying anything into the system, but they are reaping the benefits of our schools and our hospitals. So I think that we need to capture that revenue as well, and that would help help a lot of states like California, who's facing bankruptcy now because they have probably a high population of the illegal immigrant population because of their safe cities that they've established in their state.
Mr. Janes, we just have a couple moments left in the program. I wanted to give you some time to, I guess, make your pitch, if you will, to us about why you're the best candidate for the 8th Congressional District.
Well, great. I feel that I'm the best candidate because I'm running for the right reasons. I'm tired of voting for the lesser of the 2 evils. It seems like year after year we continue to send politicians to Washington that are heavily influenced by special interest groups. The thing is that those same politicians are obligated to those special interest groups, whether it's in our best interest or not. It's time that we, the people, become that special interest group that our politicians listen to, and that we need to vote for a person that is running for the right reasons and not make money the reason that you elect your representatives. And I'm that person.
Mr. Janes, we thank you very much for joining us. We, as always, thank the Jackson-Madison County Library for the use of this facility. We thank you for joining us and ask you to stop in next week when we talk with Mark Rawls, another of the independent candidates. And again, look down the road 2 weeks to when we speak with Roy Herron, the Democratic candidate. As I said earlier, the Republican candidate, Stephen Fincher, declined to participate. We thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.